Hello, esteemed gentlemen. The scariest monsters are the ones who don't know they're monsters. That's not just a line from a horror film, it's a psychological truth. And today, we're not talking about ghosts, demons, or villains in masks. We're talking about Sigma males, the lone wolves, the quiet storm, the men who don't scream for power because they already have it. But here's the twist. They don't even realize what they're doing to the world around them. And that's what makes it so terrifying. Psychologists have found that the most unsettling people in any room aren't the loud, attention-seeking narcissists, but the ones whose silence rearranges the entire social atmosphere without effort. Sigma males don't just influence people, they disrupt reality, all while thinking they're just minding their business. They don't roar, they don't chase, they don't beg. Yet somehow they leave people obsessed, shaken, or haunted, sometimes all three. And the worst part, they're not even trying. This isn't a list about cliché alpha versus sigma garbage. No, he's mysterious and brooding nonsense here. These are 12 raw, spine-prickling behaviors sigma males perform unconsciously. Actions so chilling, so surgically precise, they almost feel supernatural. Think you're ready? Just know this. If you've ever had someone walk into your life like a ghost, ruin your emotional wiring, then vanish like a dream you can't forget, you might have crossed paths with one of them. Now buckle up. It's time to uncover the 12 petrifying things Sigma males do without realizing they do it. And if you start feeling paranoid halfway through, relax. That just means a Sigma's already watching. Number 1. They move on so deeply, it feels supernatural. When most people say they've moved on, what they really mean is they've temporarily distracted themselves. They jump into another relationship, bury themselves in work, or post fake smiles on social media hoping someone's watching. But a Sigma male moves differently, dangerously differently. When he's done, he's really done. No drama, no theatrics, no delayed goodbyes. He simply disappears, not just from your life, but from your mental space in a way that leaves a lasting emotional void. What makes it petrifying is how clean and complete his departure feels. One day he's in your world, maybe not loud or all-consuming, but quietly consistent, and the next it's like he's been wiped off the map. No passive-aggressive texts, no late-night second thoughts, no "let's be friends," just silence. A silence so deep it echoes. This isn't some manipulative tactic or ego trip. He's not trying to hurt anyone. He's just wired to detach once something no longer aligns with his path. And he doesn't need closure to do it. He doesn't stalk your updates or reread old messages. He doesn't cling to what-ifs. He makes peace in his own mind, on his own terms, and then deletes the emotional file, permanently. To the person left behind, it feels brutal. It's not just the absence of contact that hurts, it's the eerie sense that they've been emotionally erased by someone who once saw them up close. That level of detachment feels almost inhuman, not because the Sigma male lacks feelings, but because he's mastered the art of not feeding them once they become destructive. He lets go completely, while others are still begging the past to come back to life. The scariest part? The Sigma doesn't even see it as a power move. To him, it's simply self-preservation. But to the ones who once had access to him, it's a psychological ghosting so intense it lingers for years. Because nothing haunts quite like a man who never looked back, not once. And the silence he leaves behind? That silence says everything. Number 2, they breathe comfort in darkness. Most people fear darkness, emotional, social, mental, spiritual. They avoid it like a disease. They'll do anything to escape it. Surround themselves with noise, distractions, people, temporary highs just to keep the silence out. But Sigma males are built differently. They don't just tolerate darkness, they function inside it, they breathe in it, and that alone separates them from almost everyone else. Where others panic, a Sigma male pauses. When life gets cold, silent, uncertain, he doesn't flinch. He listens, he absorbs, he adapts. Not because he enjoys pain or is emotionally numb, but because he's made peace with discomfort. And that kind of inner stillness, it shakes people. It's not normal. We're trained to avoid suffering, not sit inside it and learn from it. But the Sigma does exactly that. He doesn't run from the void. He studies it. What makes this truly unsettling is how calm he stays when everyone else is unraveling. Most people wear strength like a costume. But when the lights go out, they fall apart. Their confidence collapses, their fake personas break, and their weakness starts leaking through. But the Sigma? His silence gets louder. His focus sharpens. He starts thriving when things fall apart. Not in a loud look-at-me way, but in a terrifyingly stable way that makes others question how much chaos he's seen and survived. It's why people often mistake him for cold or unbothered. But that's not the truth. The truth is he's comfortable in the spaces most people pretend don't exist. Emotional darkness, solitude, failure, betrayal, change. These things don't break him. They sharpen him. And because he doesn't fear the dark, he can move through life without needing permission, praise, or protection. That's power on a level most never reach. Being around a Sigma forces people to confront their own fragility, because the question always becomes, why does he seem fine when I'm falling apart? That contrast makes people feel exposed, even if the Sigma says nothing. His peace in darkness reflects the panic in others. And it's not what he says, it's what he doesn't need that terrifies people the most. Because when you meet someone who doesn't fear the dark, you realize how much of your strength was based on staying in the light. Number 3, they make others feel like extras in their movie. A Sigma male doesn't try to be the main character, he just lives in a way that makes everyone else feel like side notes. Not because he's loud, flashy, or demanding attention, quite the opposite. He moves with such self-possession, such unshakable direction, that everyone around him starts to feel like they're just filling space in his storyline. He's not performing for an audience. He doesn't care who's watching. He doesn't shape his identity based on trends, approval, or social feedback loops. And that's where the unsettling shift happens. People who rely on external validation suddenly feel invisible around him. Their usual tactics, oversharing, bragging, dominating conversations, fall flat, because the Sigma's not reacting. He's not competing. He's just doing what he came to do. And everyone else starts to feel like background noise to a man with his own internal script. It's not arrogance, it's clarity. He knows who he is, where he's going, and why he's not begging for a seat at anyone else's table. And when someone operates with that level of inward focus, it becomes painfully obvious how many people don't. That's what unnerves them. They realize they're not the center of the story. They never were. It's not uncommon for people to feel off balance around a Sigma, even if he's quiet and polite. They start questioning their own relevance, their roles in life, their need to be seen. Why? Because when someone moves like their life is a mission, everyone else starts wondering if they're just improvising through theirs. And that realization, it cuts deep. This isn't about dominance or superiority, it's about presence. A Sigma's presence doesn't demand attention, it rewrites the energy of the space. He doesn't absorb the spotlight, he makes people realize the spotlight was never real to begin with. And in that moment, they feel like extras, rehearsed, replaceable, unsure, next to someone who's clearly not acting. That's the terrifying truth. He's not trying to lead, he's just not following anyone. And suddenly the whole room feels like it's orbiting around someone who never asked for gravity. Number 4, they trigger deep insecurities in alpha males. Alpha males are used to being the loudest voice in the room, the center of attention, the one everyone looks to. Their entire identity often revolves around dominance, being respected, admired, even feared. But when a Sigma male walks in, all of that starts to crumble. And the scariest part is, he doesn't even notice. Sigmas don't compete. They don't challenge the alpha head-on. They don't need to. Their indifference alone is enough to disrupt the alpha's world. Because where the alpha demands recognition, the Sigma doesn't care if you see him or not. He doesn't play the status game. He doesn't crave validation. He moves like someone with nothing to prove, and that makes the alpha feel exposed. The Sigma becomes an unintentional mirror, and what that mirror reflects back to the alpha is brutal. Insecurity disguised as dominance, performance mistaken for strength. The alpha suddenly realizes his power only works on people who need something from him, followers, admirers, yes men. But the Sigma, he needs nothing, no attention, no approval, no fake respect. And in that silence, the alpha starts questioning himself. The presence of a Sigma male shifts the dynamic. The room no longer revolves around who talks the loudest or flexes the most. It shifts toward the one who doesn't care who's watching. And that rattles the alpha to his core. Because if someone who's not even trying can steal attention, respect, and quiet influence, what does that say about the alpha's carefully built image? Even worse, the sigma often doesn't even notice the insecurity he's triggered. He's not trying to upstage anyone, but his authenticity threatens every man who's built his identity around external dominance. That subtle threat, the idea that someone can own himself without needing to own others, makes the alpha feel small. And once an alpha male senses he's being ignored by someone immune to his power, something dangerous happens. He realizes that dominance isn't real authority. It's just noise that the wrong kind of man doesn't hear at all. Number 5. They radiate unexplainable control in unfamiliar chaos. There's something quietly disturbing about a man who walks into unfamiliar chaos and doesn't even blink. No confusion, no panic, no need to assert dominance or ask for instructions. That's the sigma male. You can drop him in a foreign environment, a tense meeting full of power plays, or an emotionally volatile situation, and instead of reacting, he absorbs. Silently, sharply, intentionally. What unsettles people isn't just his calm, it's the type of calm. It doesn't feel like ignorance or arrogance, it feels earned, like someone who's been through worse and just isn't impressed by the noise anymore. People expect hesitation, scrambling, some sign of pressure, but the sigma doesn't give them that satisfaction. He simply adapts. And that adaptability, it feels trained, even when it's not. His control doesn't scream, it simmers, and that subtle presence starts pulling attention. People wonder, why isn't he reacting like everyone else? What does he know that we don't? That discomfort grows because the sigma doesn't try to take control. He just doesn't lose it. In situations where others start scrambling for authority, approval, or clarity, the sigma stays rooted. His stillness becomes unnerving. Some think it's emotional detachment, others assume it's arrogance, but deep down it feels like something else. Discipline. The kind that can't be faked. The kind that only comes from having been tested before, possibly in ways he'll never talk about. And the fear creeps in when people realize they have no idea what he's truly capable of. In unfamiliar chaos, most people reveal their weaknesses. They show their need for structure, control, and affirmation. But the sigma reveals something terrifying instead, his total independence from all of that. He doesn't need the environment to change in his favor. He becomes immune to it. And that's a level of internal control most people don't even understand, let alone possess. You can't lead him, distract him, or shake him. And when things finally calm down, people don't just remember the chaos. They remember him standing in the middle of it, untouched. That's not just unsettling. That's power in its rawest, quietest form. Number 6. They make people feel like they're being watched, even when they're not. Being around a sigma male often feels strangely uncomfortable, even if he hasn't said a single word. There's this quiet pressure in the air, like someone's watching, even when his eyes aren't on you. It's not paranoia in the traditional sense. It's something far more subtle and unsettling. Because the truth is, you're not being watched, you're being read. Sigma males observe in a way most people don't. They notice things others overlook, the tone behind your words, the micro-expression you didn't mean to flash, the way your confidence dips when someone questions you. They don't scan a room looking for attention. They scan it like a puzzle, silently picking up on all the cracks people are trying to hide. And the creepiest part? They rarely speak on what they see. That silence creates a weird mental effect. People start second-guessing themselves around him. They wonder, did he notice that slip-up? Did he catch that lie? Did I just reveal too much? Even when the sigma isn't paying attention, it feels like he is. That's the power of presence combined with hyper-awareness. It creates an atmosphere of psychological exposure. This isn't some conscious power trip. The sigma isn't trying to make people squirm. He's just naturally tuned into things that others block out. He's not distracted by social performances or empty small talk, so when he locks in, even briefly, it feels like an X-ray. It makes people more self-conscious, more restrained, almost like they're being silently evaluated. And because sigma males don't fill space with noise, people can't predict them. They're not reactive, they're reflective. So others start projecting their own guilt, shame, or anxiety onto that silence. The sigma becomes a kind of mirror, one that reflects back all the hidden parts people pretend don't exist. That's what makes it so unnerving. People aren't afraid because the sigma is aggressive. They're afraid because he sees through the performance and doesn't bother to play along. His gaze, whether present or imagined, doesn't ask for truth, it expects it. And in a world full of people desperate to be seen for their masks, meeting someone who sees what's underneath is nothing short of terrifying. Number 7. They withdraw emotionally, forensically. When a sigma male starts to withdraw emotionally, it's not loud, messy, or dramatic. There's no shouting match, no grand exit, no warning signs people are trained to look for. It's clean, cold, methodical, almost impossible to stop once it starts. Because for the sigma, withdrawal isn't about emotions running wild. It's about clarity taking over. And when that clarity hits, he doesn't just distance himself emotionally. He dissects, he analyzes, he studies everything you do with chilling precision. To most people, detachment looks like sadness or confusion, but with a sigma, it looks like data collection. He watches your patterns, how you respond under pressure, how you treat people when you think no one's watching, how many excuses you make, what you hide behind your words. He doesn't say anything while he's doing it. You won't even realize he's gone emotionally. But he's already 3 steps out the door, building a silent case in his mind. And he won't tell you when he's done. There's no final argument, no open confrontation, just a decision, quiet and absolute. He's not retreating to win a power game, he's closing a file, permanently. You'll only notice the shift when it's too late. His messages get shorter, his energy goes flat, and that once razor-sharp attentiveness disappears. Not because he's distracted, but because he's finished. What terrifies people is how little emotion he shows while doing it. Not because he doesn't feel, but because he refuses to let his feelings cloud his judgment. He gives you just enough space to prove yourself, but not enough to manipulate him. And when he sees that a situation, relationship, or dynamic no longer aligns with his internal code, he cuts it off like dead weight. No rage, no regret, just finality. Most never see it coming. Because while they were busy thinking things were fine, the sigma was already gathering the last pieces of truth. And when he walks away, it's not because he wants to hurt you. It's because he already figured out you wouldn't survive the deeper layers of who he really is. And now he knows you're not worth the access. Number 8. They erode manipulators without confrontation. Manipulators thrive on reactions. They plant subtle emotional traps, guilt trips, passive aggression, gaslighting, flattery, waiting for someone to bite, to dance, to defend. That's how they win, by pulling you into their web without you realizing it. But when they try it on a sigma male, the entire game breaks down. Not because the sigma fights back, but because he doesn't play at all. A sigma male doesn't respond to manipulation the way most people do. He doesn't argue. He doesn't try to prove his point. He doesn't even bother to correct the manipulator. He simply lets the bait hang there in the air, untouched. And that silence, that refusal to engage, it's devastating. It exposes the manipulator for what they are. Someone trying way too hard to control someone who isn't interested in being controlled. This is where things get scary. Manipulators rely on emotional leverage. But a sigma male keeps his emotions in-house. He doesn't give you guilt to play with. He doesn't show fear or desperation. He watches, he notices, he files things away without reacting, and suddenly, the manipulator realizes they've lost their grip. Their tricks don't land. Their performances don't work. Their power, gone. And the sigma doesn't even have to call it out. He just lets the manipulator drown in their own noise. Every attempt to control or confuse him only makes the manipulator look more desperate, more obvious, more exposed. It's psychological death by non-response. The irony? The sigma isn't doing this to win. He's not playing psychological chess. He just sees through it and doesn't respect it enough to engage. To him, manipulation is cheap, transparent, weak, and that quiet dismissal cuts deeper than any insult ever could. Manipulators feed on chaos. Sigma males are allergic to it. That's why manipulators often feel small, clumsy, and powerless in their presence, because nothing they do gets the desired effect. No chaos is created, no power is gained, just a slow, painful realization that they're not in control here. And once a manipulator feels that, they don't just lose, they unravel. alone, while the Sigma walks away untouched, unimpressed, and absolutely undefeated. Number 9. They break romantic obsessions without closure. When a Sigma male leaves a woman's life, he doesn't explain himself. He doesn't give a long speech. He doesn't unpack emotions over coffee. He just fades, quietly, completely, and without apology. And what he leaves behind is not closure. It's not even confusion. It's a void, a space so sharp and silent it echoes in ways she can't explain. It doesn't feel like a typical breakup. There's no argument, no drama, no obvious reason she can point to, just absence. And that absence starts to eat at her, not because he was emotionally overwhelming, but because he was emotionally real, raw, different. He didn't sell her fantasy. He showed her something rare, genuine presence without performance. And when that disappears, it creates a kind of emotional damage most people don't know how to fix. She starts to replay everything, his silence, his depth, the way he could see through her walls without tearing them down. And the worst part, she realizes no one else makes her feel that seen without saying much. No one else makes her feel that calm without trying. He didn't chase, he didn't beg, he didn't need to impress her. And now every man who tries too hard suddenly looks ridiculous. This is what makes it so haunting. His absence reprograms her expectations. She loses taste for shallow attention, meaningless flattery, and fake effort. Because now, every interaction is being unconsciously measured against a man who didn't even try to leave a mark, but did. A man who was emotionally distant and yet felt more real than anyone who ever poured their heart out to her. She won't admit it out loud. Most won't. But something inside her changes permanently. She becomes harder to reach, harder to impress, harder to satisfy. Not out of bitterness, but because she's seen a different standard. And it wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, and it wasn't easy. And the scariest part, he didn't leave her with answers. He left her with questions. Ones that no one else has ever made her ask about herself. Number 10. They unknowingly mirror people's shadows. Being around a Sigma male can feel strangely uncomfortable, and most people don't understand why. He's not doing anything offensive, he's not judging, he's not even talking much, but somehow people feel exposed around him, like their masks are slipping and they can't control it. The truth is, Sigma males don't trigger people by being loud or critical. They do it by being complete within themselves, and that quiet self-containment acts like a mirror. Most people walk through life wearing roles, pretending to be more confident, more charming, more in control than they really are. And usually, that works. The world plays along, but not with a Sigma. He doesn't react to your mask. He doesn't validate your persona. He just watches. And that lack of reaction creates a vacuum, one that forces people to see what's underneath their performance. It's not intentional. Sigma males don't go around trying to expose anyone, but their grounded energy and lack of social neediness has a strange effect. It strips away illusion. People start revealing parts of themselves they usually keep buried. Insecurity, envy, ego, weakness. They project it onto the Sigma because they're uncomfortable seeing it in themselves. Someone who constantly seeks validation suddenly feels insecure around a Sigma who doesn't need any. Someone who's used to charming their way through life starts feeling awkward, like their tricks aren't working. Someone who hides their anxiety behind loud confidence finds their voice shaking when the Sigma doesn't respond with the expected praise. This mirroring effect makes people behave irrationally. They get defensive, overcompensate, or try to provoke him just to get a reaction. But the Sigma doesn't bite. And that silence, it pushes people deeper into their own discomfort. They're not reacting to the Sigma. They're reacting to themselves. That's what makes this so unnerving. His presence forces a kind of self-confrontation most people spend their entire lives avoiding, and it's not because he's trying to dominate or manipulate, it's because he simply refuses to be fake. And that truth, reflected back at people who aren't ready for it, can feel like a psychological slap. The Sigma doesn't say much, but somehow being around him makes people feel like they've just been exposed. Number 11. They build emotional fortresses without intending to. Sigma. Males don't build emotional walls out of fear or trauma, they build fortresses out of instinct. And the strangest part? They don't even realize they're doing it. To them, their emotional privacy isn't some defense mechanism, it's just how they operate. Even when they're in love, when they trust you, when they care deeply, there's always a part of them you can't touch, a room you can't enter, a door that stays locked no matter how much you prove yourself. This isn't about being cold or distant. Sigma males can be warm, loyal, and deeply supportive. But the moment someone tries to crack open their inner world too much, there's a shift, a quiet pullback, a subtle wall goes up. It's not rejection, it's protection of something sacred. They don't see emotional exposure as bonding. They see it as giving away leverage they don't trust the world with. People who fall for them often feel both drawn in and shut out. It becomes this emotional maze. 1 minute, you're close, the next, you're lost. The Sigma shares just enough to keep you feeling connected, but never enough for you to fully understand him. That mystery becomes addictive. You start obsessing over what's behind the silence, what he's not saying, what he's hiding, not because he's secretive, but because his depth feels bottomless. And here's where it turns haunting. The more someone tries to reach that sealed-off part of him, the more they begin to feel inadequate. Not because the Sigma makes them feel small, but because they can't breach the fortress, and it starts to feel like failure. They begin measuring their worth against how close they can get to him emotionally. That closeness becomes the obsession. That wall becomes the curse. The Sigma doesn't play emotional games, but his quiet distance can slowly unravel someone who's used to being let in. They start overgiving, overanalyzing, hoping that one more act of love will earn them the key to that final locked room, but they never get it. Because for the Sigma, that room was never meant to be opened, not to protect himself from others, but to protect what he's built inside himself from being diluted by the outside world. Number 12. They speak in a way that feels like a final judgment. When a Sigma male finally decides to speak, people listen, and not out of politeness, but out of instinct. His words don't come often, and when they do, they carry a strange weight. It's not volume, not authority, not emotional intensity. It's the finality in his tone. Like what he's saying isn't just an opinion, it's a conclusion. And that's what makes it unsettling. Most people speak to process their thoughts, to bounce ideas around, to be heard. A Sigma doesn't do that. He's quiet because he's thinking deeply, not impulsively, not emotionally. He listens, watches, analyzes, and then, when everyone else has said their piece, he drops a sentence or two that changes the entire atmosphere. He doesn't raise his voice, he doesn't argue, he just delivers something that feels like a verdict, and the room falls silent. There's no ego in it. He's not trying to be right. He's not trying to prove himself. That's what makes it feel so unnerving. His words sound like they've already been tested, mentally, morally, logically. And whatever he's saying is the result of that process. There's no hesitation, no need for reassurance. Just that calm, measured delivery that says, "This is what I see, and I'm no longer debating it." People often feel disarmed when he speaks, even if they don't want to admit it. Not because he's aggressive, but because there's something so unchangeable in the way he says things. It makes them question themselves. Did they miss something? Were they being emotional? Is the Sigma seeing something they couldn't? And the truth is, usually yes. He's already seen the pattern, the motive, the flaw in the logic. He didn't interrupt you while you talked. He let you finish. But by the time he speaks, he's already passed judgment, not on you personally, but on the situation. And once he's spoken, that's it. He won't revisit it. He won't argue. The verdict is final. It's not just what he says, it's what follows. Silence. Because to him, once the truth is spoken, there's nothing left to discuss. The Sigma male doesn't seek to dominate the world around him, yet somehow he does. Without raising his voice, without begging for attention, without chasing approval, he shifts the atmosphere just by existing within it. His presence unsettles, not because it's aggressive, but because it's pure detachment, pure focus, pure truth. And in a world drowning in noise, that kind of stillness is louder than anything. He isn't a threat because he wants to be. He's a threat because he exposes what others try desperately to hide. He doesn't break people with words or actions. He lets their own masks collapse in the weight of his indifference. He doesn't manipulate, compete, or impress. He observes. He decides. He disappears. And in doing so, he leaves behind more chaos than those who came in screaming. What makes him truly terrifying is not what he says or does, it's what he doesn't need. He doesn't need validation. He doesn't need a crowd. He doesn't need to explain himself. That kind of self-reliance is rare and dangerous, because when you can't be bought, swayed, or controlled, you become a mirror the world isn't ready to face. So when a Sigma male moves through your life, quietly, sharply, completely, understand this. It was never about what he showed you. It was about what you saw in yourself while he was there. And when he's gone, he doesn't leave behind memories. He leaves behind a standard, one that will haunt, challenge, and forever separate real from fake in the hearts of those who felt his presence. Because Sigma males don't just walk through rooms, they rewrite them. If this hit you in a way you weren't ready for, good. That's the Sigma effect. If you felt seen, challenged, or exposed in the best possible way, then you're exactly the kind of mind we want here. So before you go, do the smart thing. Subscribe to the channel for more content that doesn't just entertain but unmasks. Hit that like button if you're done with surface-level noise and crave content that goes deep. Drop a comment below. Whether you're a Sigma, know one, survived one, or became one, we read everything. And most importantly, share this with someone who needs to understand what real quiet power looks like, before they mistake it for weakness. This isn't just a channel, it's a mindset. Welcome to the edge.